The nature of happiness, true contentment versus temporary pleasures. Welcome. Find a comfortable position, take a breath, and prepare to question everything you think you know about happiness. What you're about to hear is not a collection of platitudes or empty affirmations. This is an investigation, a philosophical expedition into the very nature of well-being, into the mechanisms that drive human behavior, and into the ancient wisdom that has been obscured by the noise of modern life. For this journey, I invite you to set aside your phone, your distractions, and your usual mental armor. We're going to explore something fundamental. Why, despite having more than any generation in history, so many of us feel less satisfied than ever. This journey will take us from ancient Greece to modern neuroscience, from Buddhist monasteries to Silicon Valley boardrooms. But most importantly, it will take us inward, to the architecture of your own mind, to the mechanisms of your own suffering, and to the path toward genuine, lasting peace. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Great Pursuit. We begin with a simple, yet terrifying observation. The human journey is, at its core, a relentless pursuit of a single, elusive state. Happiness. Stop for a moment and think about your own life. Every decision you've made, from the career you chose to the relationships you've pursued, from the purchases you've made to the places you've traveled, all of it has been motivated, consciously or unconsciously, by a single question: will this make me happy? We are all travelers on this path, driven by an inner compass that points toward well-being. But here's the problem. Most of us are using a broken compass. We're navigating by a map that was drawn by people who profit from keeping us lost. In a modern world, this pursuit has been tragically simplified. Happiness has been reduced to a commodity, a fleeting emotion that can be purchased, consumed, and discarded. Turn on your television, scroll through your social media feed, walk through any shopping mall. The message is everywhere. Buy this, and you'll be happy. Achieve this, and you'll be fulfilled. Look like this, and you'll be content. We are taught to confuse the signal with the source. Think about the last time you bought something you really wanted. Perhaps it was a new phone, a piece of clothing, maybe even a car. Do you remember that feeling? That surge of excitement, that moment of satisfaction? Now ask yourself, where is that feeling now? We mistake the momentary rush of pleasure for the deep, sustaining well of contentment. We chase the high, only to find ourselves perpetually returning to the baseline, empty-handed. This is the central tragedy of the modern mind. But there's an alternative, a different way of understanding happiness that's been known for thousands of years. The ancient wisdom offers a radical distinction. It separates the hedonic, the pursuit of pleasure, from the eudaimonic, the pursuit of a life well lived. It is the difference between a sugar rush and a deep, nourishing meal, between the frantic energy of caffeine and the steady strength of a full night's sleep, between the validation of social media and the warmth of a genuine conversation with a friend. This distinction isn't just philosophical wordplay. It's the difference between a life spent chasing and a life spent living, between exhaustion and vitality, between perpetual dissatisfaction and genuine peace. The question we must ask ourselves is this: which kind of happiness have we been pursuing? And more importantly, which kind do we actually want? Chapter 2. The Hedonic Treadmill. The psychological mechanism that traps us in the pursuit of temporary pleasure is known as the Hedonic Treadmill. It is a cruel irony of our own biology, a system designed for survival that has become an engine of perpetual dissatisfaction. Here's how it works. When we acquire a new possession, achieve a new status, or indulge in a new pleasure, our brain releases a surge of dopamine. This is the reward, the feel-good chemical. For a brief, shining moment, we feel satisfied. We feel like we've arrived. We think, this is it. This is what I needed. But the effect is temporary. Our minds quickly adapt to the new normal. The initial pleasure fades, and what was once a source of joy becomes the new baseline. The luxury car becomes just your car. The promotion becomes just your job. The relationship becomes just your relationship. To feel that same initial rush, we must seek a larger dose, a more intense experience, or a newer object. This isn't a character flaw. This is evolutionary programming. Our ancestors survived because they were never fully satisfied, because they always sought more food, more safety, more resources. In a world of scarcity, the hedonic treadmill was adaptive. In a world of abundance, it's a recipe for misery. Consider the lottery winner. Studies show that after an initial surge of happiness, most lottery winners return to their baseline level of well-being within a year. Some even report being less happy than before. Why? Because they're still the same person with the same thought patterns, the same relationships, the same inner landscape. The external circumstances changed, but the internal architecture remained the same. Or consider the executive climbing the corporate ladder. Each promotion brings a week or two of satisfaction, followed by the same stress, the same anxiety, the same hunger for the next level. The treadmill speeds up, but the destination never gets closer. Pleasure, by its nature, is a debt, not a resource. It demands continuous repayment. Think of it like this. Every moment of pleasure creates a corresponding moment of craving. The higher the high, the lower the low. The more intense the stimulation, the more tolerance you build, and the more stimulation you need to feel anything at all. It is a state of constant striving, a perpetual motion machine fueled by the illusion that satisfaction lies just beyond the next acquisition. I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds, when I get the promotion, when I meet the right person, when I have enough money, when I retire. The treadmill is designed to keep you running, never arriving. But here's the deeper question. Who designed this treadmill? In the modern world, it's not just our biology. It's an entire economic system built on the premise that you are incomplete, that you are insufficient, that you need more. Every advertisement you see, every influencer you follow, every algorithm that curates your feed, they all profit from your dissatisfaction. They need you to keep running. They need you to believe that happiness is just one purchase away. The first step toward freedom is recognizing the treadmill for what it is. Not to judge yourself for being on it. We're all on it, but to understand its mechanics. To see the pattern. To recognize that the voice in your head saying, "You'll be happy when," is not wisdom. It's programming. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Contentment. The alternative is Eudaimonia, a Greek term often translated as flourishing or living well. But these translations don't quite capture its depth. Eudaimonia is the deep, quiet satisfaction that comes from living in alignment with your highest self. Aristotle, who popularized this concept, didn't think of happiness as a feeling at all. He thought of it as an activity, the activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you do. It's not a destination. It's a way of traveling. Eudaimonic happiness is not an emotion that happens to you. It is a state of being that is built by you. It is the result of purposeful action, the expression of your unique potential, and the contribution to something larger than yourself. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed in meaningful work. Perhaps you were creating something, solving a difficult problem, or helping someone in need. Time disappeared. Self-consciousness vanished. You weren't thinking about whether you were happy. You were simply engaged, present, alive. That's eudaimonia. Or think about a moment of deep connection with another person. Not the superficial exchange of pleasantries, but a genuine conversation where you felt truly seen and understood. That's eudaimonia. Or remember a time when you acted with integrity in a difficult situation, when you chose the right thing over the easy thing, when you honored your values even though no one was watching. That's eudaimonia. Contentment is the inner spring that is not dependent on the weather of external circumstances. It is the peaceful realization that you are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you should be doing. This might sound passive, even complacent. The modern mind rebels against this idea. How can I be content with where I am? I have goals. I have ambitions. I want to improve. But here's the paradox. True contentment doesn't mean the absence of growth. It means the absence of the desperate, grasping energy that undermines growth. It means working toward goals from a place of sufficiency rather than deficiency, creating from overflow rather than emptiness, striving from joy rather than fear. Contentment is the absence of striving against reality. It is the peaceful realization that the moment, as it is enough. Not that you won't change anything, not that you won't work towards something better, but that you don't need anything to change in order to be fundamentally okay. It is the quiet joy of sufficiency, a state that is often mistaken for complacency by the mind addicted to the rush of pleasure. The contented person doesn't stop growing. They grow from a different place. Not from, I'm not enough, but from, I am enough, and I'm curious about what's possible. Not from, I need to fix myself, but from, I'm interested in developing myself. Can you feel the difference in energy between those two approaches? This is the architecture of contentment, a foundation of sufficiency, walls of purpose and connection, and a roof of meaning. Not the flimsy structure of pleasure, which collapses at the first storm, but a solid dwelling that weathers every season. Chapter 4. The illusion of the next thing. The engine that drives the hedonic treadmill is craving. It is the psychological mechanism that whispers, "You will be happy when." Listen to that voice in your mind. We all have it. I'll be happy when I get the degree, when I land the job, when I find a partner, when I buy the house, when I lose the weight, when the kids are grown, when I retire. When? This craving is not a desire for a thing itself, but a desire for the feeling we believe the thing will provide. We don't want the car. We want a feeling of status, freedom, or success we think the car will give us. We don't want a relationship. We want the feeling of being loved, validated, or complete we think the relationship will provide. We are not addicted to the object. We are addicted to the anticipation, the brief, false promise of finality. The promise that this time, this acquisition, this achievement will be the one that finally satisfies. That this time, we can stop running. But we never do. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who had access to every pleasure and luxury imaginable, wrote in his private journals, "It is not the man who is too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The Stoics taught that external goods are indifferents. They can be used well or poorly, but they cannot guarantee virtue or happiness. You can have wealth and be miserable. You can have poverty and be content. The difference isn't the circumstance. It's your relationship to the circumstance. The Buddhists called it tanha, the thirst that keeps the wheel of suffering turning. The second noble truth states that craving is the root of suffering, not desire itself, desire for growth, for connection, for contribution, but the compulsive, grasping craving that says, I cannot be okay until I have this. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you achieved every goal you've ever set. Every dream came true. Every item on your wish list was checked off. Would you then be permanently happy? Would the craving finally stop? If you're honest with yourself, you know the answer. The mind would immediately generate new goals, new desires, new things to chase. Because the craving isn't really about the object. It's about the pattern itself. It's about the story that you're incomplete, that something is missing, that happiness is somewhere else, sometime else, someone else. Imagine your mind as a room filled with furniture. Every belief, every desire, every should and must and need to have. The room is so cluttered you can barely move. Contentment isn't about adding more furniture. It's about clearing the space, removing the beliefs that don't serve you, creating room to breathe, to see clearly, to move freely. To understand the nature of true contentment, we must first understand the architecture of our inner economy. We must learn to shift our resources from the external market of pleasure to the internal well of peace. Chapter 5. The Inner Economy. The mind operates on an inner economy, governed by the principles of attention and value. We invest our most precious resource, our attention, into what we believe will yield the highest return of well-being. Where is your attention right now in your daily life? If you're like most people, it's scattered across a dozen different concerns. What others think of you, what you need to accomplish, what you're afraid might happen, what you wish had happened differently. It's in the past, in the future, everywhere except the present moment. This is attention poverty in the midst of attention abundance. You have this incredible resource, the ability to consciously direct your awareness, and you're spending it like a billionaire with a gambling addiction, throwing it at every fleeting thought and external stimulus. True contentment is a function of internal resources, gratitude, purpose, and connection. These are the assets that appreciate over time, yielding compound interest in the form of peace. Let's start with gratitude. Gratitude is the radical realization that the present moment is a surplus, not a deficit. It is the conscious choice to focus on what is already here rather than what is missing. It is the most powerful antidote to the poison of craving. Try this right now. Name 3 things you're grateful for that you didn't have to earn, that simply exist as the baseline of your life. Perhaps the fact that you can hear these words, that you have air to breathe, that's somewhere in your life. Someone has shown you kindness. Notice what happens in your body when you shift your attention to gratitude. There's a softening, an opening, a sense of sufficiency. This isn't toxic positivity. It's not pretending that everything is perfect. It's recognizing that even in difficulty, there are elements of grace. The grateful mind asks, what if everything I have is exactly what I need? Not forever, not as a final state, but right now, in this moment. What if the resources you currently possess, your abilities, your relationships, your circumstances, are sufficient for this moment? Next, connection. Connection is the recognition that the self is not an isolated island, but a node in a vast, interconnected network. The deepest, most lasting forms of happiness are always shared, always relational. Study after study confirms this. The strongest predictor of happiness and longevity isn't wealth, fame, or achievement. It's the quality of our relationships, not the number of followers or friends, but the depth of genuine connection, the feeling of being truly known and still accepted, the experience of seeing and being seen. And yet, we live in the most disconnected, connected society in history. We have 1,000 contacts and no one to call when we're in pain. We share everything and reveal nothing. We're surrounded by people and profoundly alone. True connection requires vulnerability. It requires the risk of being seen in your imperfection, your uncertainty, your humanity. It requires giving your full attention to another person, not scrolling while they talk, not waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely being present with them. Finally, purpose. Purpose is the alignment of your actions with a value that transcends your own immediate needs. It is the feeling of being a necessary part of a larger, meaningful whole. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost anyhow." He observed that the prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or the most privileged. They were the ones who had a reason to live, a purpose that pulled them forward. Purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't require changing the world or finding your one true calling. It can be as simple as being a good parent, creating beauty in your daily work, or showing up with integrity in your relationships. The key is that it connects your actions to something beyond your immediate gratification. These 3 resources, gratitude, connection, and purpose, form the foundation of the inner economy. They're renewable, sustainable, and they compound over time. Unlike the external economy of pleasure, which depletes with each transaction, the internal economy of contentment grows richer with each investment. Chapter 6. The Paradox of Control. Much of our suffering stems from the illusion that we can control the external world to match our internal desires. We believe that if we can just arrange the pieces correctly, the picture of happiness will be complete. We try to control what others think of us, how our careers unfold, whether our relationships work out, what the economy does. what our bodies look like, the weather, the traffic, the outcomes of our efforts. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage the unmanageable, trying to guarantee the uncertain. The paradox of control reveals that the only thing we truly control is our response to the world. The Stoic wisdom teaches us to draw a clear line between what is within our power and what is not. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." He divided everything into two categories: things within our control and things not within our control. Within our control, our judgments, our intentions, our effort, our character, how we treat others. Not within our control, what others think of us, what happens to us, the outcomes of our actions, the past, the future, what others do, our circumstances. The profound wisdom here is that almost everything we worry about falls into the second category. We spend our lives trying to control things that are fundamentally beyond our control, while neglecting the only things we actually can control, our own thoughts, choices, and responses. Think about your biggest source of stress right now. Chances are, it involves trying to control something outside your sphere of influence. You're trying to make someone change, trying to guarantee a particular outcome, trying to prevent something uncertain from happening. And with each attempt, you're creating more suffering for yourself. Temporary pleasures are built on the sand of external circumstances: wealth, health, reputation. True contentment is built on the rock of character, virtue, wisdom, and self-mastery. The former is always vulnerable to the storm. The latter is the storm itself. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means directing your energy where it can actually make a difference. Work toward the outcomes you want, but don't attach your peace of mind to whether you get them. Do your best, then let go. Plant the seeds, but don't try to control the weather. The path to contentment is not the path of arranging the world, but the path of arranging the mind. It is the cultivation of an inner sanctuary that is impervious to the chaos of the external market. Imagine being okay no matter what happens. Not because nothing bad can happen, but because you trust in your ability to respond skillfully to whatever arises. Not because you have everything figured out, but because you've stopped requiring certainty. Not because you're guaranteed success, but because your sense of worth doesn't depend on it. This is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom from needing things to be different than they are. The freedom from the tyranny of should. The freedom from the exhausting project of trying to control the uncontrollable. Chapter 7. The Discipline of Desire. The final, most difficult discipline is the discipline of desire. It is the conscious choice to want what you already have, rather than have what you currently want. This sounds impossible to the modern mind. We're taught that desire drives progress, that wanting more is human nature, that contentment with what we have is settling. But there's a profound difference between healthy aspiration and compulsive craving. The formula for contentment is elegant in its simplicity. It is the ratio between what you have and what you want. You can increase the numerator or decrease the denominator. The modern world focuses exclusively on increasing the numerator, getting more. The ancient wisdom focuses on reducing the denominator, wanting less. Here's the mathematical truth. You can double your contentment either by doubling what you have or by having what you want. But which path is more sustainable? Which is actually within your control? Consider two people with the exact same life circumstances. One is constantly focused on what's missing, what's wrong, what should be different. The other has trained themselves to appreciate what's present, what's working, what's sufficient. Who is happier? Who has more control over their well-being? This is the practice of voluntary simplicity. It is not an ascetic rejection of the world, but a strategic reduction of complexity. It is the conscious creation of space in your life for the things that truly matter: reflection, connection, and purpose. Think about your possessions. How many of them do you actually use? How many bring you genuine value versus merely occupying space in your home and your mind? Every object you own, makes a small claim on your attention. Is it worth it? Think about your commitments. How many of them align with your deepest values versus simply filling time or meeting others' expectations? Every yes to something unimportant is a no to something that matters. Think about your desires themselves. Which ones are truly yours, arising from your authentic values? And which ones have been implanted by advertising, social comparison, or the internalized voice of should? The discipline of desire involves 3 practices. First, pausing before acquisition. Before buying, achieving, or committing to something new, ask, do I want this, or do I want this? Will having this actually improve my life? Or am I chasing the feeling I imagine it will bring? Second, savoring what you have. This isn't about forcing gratitude or pretending everything is perfect. It's about actually paying attention to your experience. When you eat, taste the food. When you talk to someone, give them your full attention. When you experience something pleasant, don't immediately think about the next thing. Stay with it. Third, releasing what no longer serves. This applies to possessions, commitments, relationships, and beliefs. Not everything that once served you still serves you. Having the courage to let go creates space for what's truly important. The mind that is constantly seeking the next pleasure is a mind that is never present. The mind that has mastered its desires is a mind that is always home. Chapter 8. The Return to Sufficiency. The nature of happiness is not a destination to be reached, but a realization to be uncovered. It is the profound, quiet truth that you are already sufficient. Not that you're perfect, not that you can't grow or improve, but that your worth, your okayness, your basic adequacy as a human being doesn't depend on achievement, acquisition, or external validation. You don't have to earn the right to be content. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect. You don't have to become someone else before you can be at peace. Temporary pleasures are the fireworks, bright, loud, and quickly extinguished. True contentment is the deep, steady glow of the sun, always present, always nourishing, and requiring no external fuel. Both have their place. This isn't about rejecting pleasure or becoming some kind of monk who never enjoys anything. It's about understanding the difference between pleasure as a momentary enhancement to an already sufficient life versus pleasure as a desperate attempt to fill a void that can never be filled from the outside. Enjoy the meal, but don't need it to be extraordinary. Appreciate beauty, but don't require it for peace. Celebrate achievements, but don't depend on them for worth. Experience pleasure, but don't chase it as a solution to existential dissatisfaction. The path to a life well lived is the path of mastery over the inner world. It is the choice to step off the Hedonic Treadmill and walk the quiet, enduring path of Eudaimonia. This choice is available to you right now. Not someday, not when your circumstances change, not when you finally figure everything out. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to shift your attention from what's missing to what's present, from what you wish was different to what you can appreciate as it is, from the future to now. The secret of happiness is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less. Less complexity, less noise, less distraction, less stuff, less striving, less comparison. Not as deprivation, but as liberation. Not as poverty, but as richness. The richness of attention, of presence, of depth. The richness of enough. So here's my invitation to you. For the next week, conduct an experiment. Notice when you're on the Hedonic treadmill, when you're in that state of, I'll be happy when. Notice it without judgment. Just observe. And then, just once a day, try this. Pause. Take a breath. Look around at your actual life, not the life you wish you had, and ask yourself, what if this is enough? What if I'm enough? Not forever, not as a final state, but right now, in this moment. What if it's sufficient? You might be surprised by what you discover. Thank you for listening. May you find your way home.